The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn. These are my 2022 interpretations. There are three important aspects or elements that I picked up from this book as I went through it again. Number one is the power of discovering, or we could say going on the journey within, to discover what you truly love. Number two, revealing what you love via the conscious use of creative imagination. And number three, becoming who you were truly destined to become, the essence of the game of life. So she states, "Whatsoever man sends out in word or deed will return to him what he gives, he will receive." We are taught also that the imaging faculty plays a leading part in the game of life. Now she segments here three departments of the mind. She says there are three departments of the mind: the subconscious, conscious, and superconscious. So even though it's one mind, she segments it so we can understand the process of discovering what we truly love, working with our imagination, having that information, what we imagine as a result of discovering what we love, impress upon the subconscious mind, and allowing it to express, and also in the process, discover who we were truly meant to be. So she says the conscious mind has been called the mortal or carnal mind. So this is where we consciously decide, we consciously commit to. And she also says whatever man feels deeply or images clearly is impressed upon the subconscious mind and carried out in minutest detail. The superconscious mind is the God mind within each man and is the realm of perfect ideas. There is a place that you are to fill and no one else can fill, something you are to do and no one else can do. There is a perfect picture of this in the superconscious mind. It usually flashes across the conscious as what may appear as an unattainable idea, or perhaps something a person might consider too good to be true. However, she goes on to say that in reality, it is man's true destiny or destination flashed to him from infinite intelligence, which is within himself. So we receive ideas, hunches, inspiration within ourselves of what we truly love, what we truly desire to experience. Now, she goes on and refers to this as perfect self-expression. And she states, this achievement is held a perfect idea in divine mind, awaiting man's recognition. As the imaging faculty is the creative faculty, it is necessary for man to see the idea before it can manifest. So man's highest demand is for the divine design of his life. He may not have the faintest conception of what it is, for there is possibly some marvelous talent hidden deep within him. His demand should be, infinite spirit, open the way for the divine design of my life to manifest. Let the genius within me now be released. Let me see clearly the perfect plan. The perfect plan includes health, wealth, love, and perfect self-expression. This is the square of life which brings perfect happiness. So we discussed this in regards to Tuesday's video, in which we spoke of prosperity and riches, relating over to The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles, and also Prosperity by Charles Philbin. I recommend watching that video. Put a link in the description. She says the same thing in a different way. So we start with imagination. We receive hunches, ideas, inspiration within ourselves. This is said to be received from the superconscious, in which we are all one with the superconscious, which is the realm of perfect ideas. What some say, before being born in this world, we have predestined ourselves to become. And we want to receive this information and the plans contained. So imagination. So we see, to play successfully the game of life, we must train the imaging faculty. A person with an imaging faculty trained to image only good brings into his life every righteous desire of his heart. Health, wealth, love, friends, perfect self-expression, his highest ideals. The imagination has been called the scissors of the mind, and it is ever cutting, day by day, the pictures man sees there, and sooner or later he meets his own creations in his outer world. To train the imagination successfully, man must understand the workings of his mind. One of the greatest messages given to the race through the scriptures is that God is man's supply, and that man can release through his spoken word all things to him by divine right. He must, however, have perfect faith in his spoken word. Isaiah said, "My word shall not return unto me void, but shall accomplish that where it is sent." We know now that words and thoughts are a tremendous vibratory force, ever molding man's body and affairs. So we are to constructively use our imagination by committing to what we truly desire. What does it look like? How would we communicate to ourselves if it was true? Because it is true, it is our destiny. We allow ourselves to imagine or think about or speak about the constructive, or we could say precise use of the two gifts, speech and mind, as discussed in the Hermetica, to bring forth what we truly desire, which is our destiny. And so she says, a person knowing the power of the word becomes very careful of his conversation. He has only to watch the reaction of his words to know that they do not return void. Through his spoken word, man is continually making laws for himself. So we call this accurate or inaccurate thinking. And we know within ourselves, when we are really speaking truly about ourselves, and is revealed in how we react, or we could say tension, reactivity. As we've discussed many times, we want to see reactivity or tension as messengers as to what we are imagining. And based on this, we imagine what we truly desire. Now, this requires committing to a goal, perhaps a definite chief aim, as we learn from Think and Grow Rich, or a vision, and going down the journey to realizing the vision. And what this allows us to do is to impress consciously what we truly desire to experience, which again is received within via hunches, inspirations, visions. We know the answers within ourselves. Certainly we can be inspired by others, by looking around and perhaps looking at others who have their own version of living from what they truly love, their own inspiration. Ultimately, however, we want to find it within ourselves. What do we truly resonate with? What do we truly love? Now, we experience this as we go through life, such has been my journey. We discover, many of us, including myself, that in the earlier stages of our life, we actually know what we want, what we truly desire, what we love. But perhaps we have been identifying with certain thinking patterns, creating unnecessary resistance within ourselves, self-imposed limitations, and breaking our connection with intuition. denying our own self-expression of what we truly want to become. And we don't honor these desires and don't imagine consciously what we truly desire. So then perhaps at a certain point in the journey, we do. We say, what if I do exactly what it is that I want to do? What if I have the kind of relationship that I've always actually wanted? What if I want to actually go down the career path in which when I was a child I felt like doing, but for some reason I didn't allow myself to do it? And then they commit to it. And as she states here, I heard a metaphysician once say, if you do not run your subconscious mind yourself, someone else will run it for you. So they start the journey of listening to themselves, committing to themselves that this is what they are going to experience, this goal, this vision. They want to consciously imagine what they desire and commit to it. So then begins the journey. Now, I put it into these 4 parts here, 4 keys. So let's reflect back on our own experiences. We've probably done this before. We're probably on the journey right now to realizing our vision. Maybe you already have a goal or a vision. Or maybe you could ask the question, really, within yourself, what do you truly want to do? And then commit to it. And then recognize that actually, not only is this what we truly want to do, but the ways of how we are going to experience it will be revealed within ourselves via intuition. And then we build this inward relationship with ourselves. And so then related to this quote here, where she says, I heard a metaphysician once say, if you do not run your subconscious mind yourself, someone else will run it for you. We'll actually start to consciously think, use the 2 gifts of speech and mind consciously to think and imagine in relation to our goal and in relation to our vision. And all of that facilitates the changes within ourselves, our self-image. We can say then we're actually allowing ourselves to be how we truly want to be, what we truly love, how we truly love. We at the essence are love. And then from there, what is impressed on the subconscious mind is the conscious images and speech, internal conversation, which then expresses itself because body is an expression of mind. Words or conversation external, as in me speaking with you, is an expression of mind. It's a spawn of the inner conversation or what we are imagining. The same is to be said about our artistic expression, our entrepreneurial journey, our career path, how we choose to live our lives. This is actually discovered within ourselves. And we're actually running our own, or we could say reprogramming our own, or allowing ourselves to think how we truly, and imagine how we truly want to think, which is then sending the instructions over to the subconscious mind to express from a place of non-resistance. Now she says, resistance is hell, for it places a man in a state of torment. However, the man who is centered and established in right thinking, which is really just accurate and true thinking and imagining in relation to the goal, in relation to the vision, in relation to what we love, and how we truly want to be. And thus she says, however, the man who is centered and established in right thinking, the man who sends out only goodwill to his fellow man, which by the way is automatic, because when you truly do what you love, you'll notice that you feel love for others. You think lovingly, imagine lovingly for others. The man who sends out only goodwill to his fellow man and who is without fear cannot be touched or influenced by negative thoughts of others. In fact, he could then receive only good thoughts as he himself sends forth only good thoughts, which is a representation of love. And so we could say non-resistance, or allowing ourselves to be, is the true path. And by maintaining focus or attention on our vision, committing on the day-to-day journey to realizing our goal, our vision, we actually allow ourselves to think how we truly want to think. Ideas, hunches, inspiration, creative ideas are received within. And we're able to look at what we would call challenges or obstacles clearly. Such has been the case with my experience all throughout the journey. And I realized that every time you bring forth a vision or a goal, you can repeat this process again and again and again. There's the next vision, there's the next goal, and this entire process that she outlines here is understood to a deeper degree. And so to relate to non-resistance, which is really allowing ourselves to be how we truly want to be from the perspective of love, which is to think and imagine from love, because actions, behaviors, all rearranges from the premise of how we truly want to be. She says, a metaphysician once gave me a wonderful recipe for taking every trick in the game of life. It is the acme of non-resistance. He gave it in this way. At one time in my life, I baptized children. And of course, they had many names. Now, I no longer baptize children, but I baptize events. But I give every event the same name. If I have a failure, I baptize it success in the name of the Father and the Son and of the Holy Ghost. So if our divine right is to live from what we identify with as prosperity, and as we discussed in Tuesday's video, prosperity has an individualized meaning. You find it within yourself. No need to look to others for their opinions. You can find it within yourself. It was there and it will always be there, even if it appears as the slightest step in the right direction. One, what we would call simple goal, starts the journey. And upon realizing that goal, we release ourselves from a lot of thinking patterns that unnecessarily create complexity and resistance in our mind. And then we commit to our next goal, and the next one, and the next one, and so forth. And if on the journey a person experiences what they label as obstacle, or failure, or challenge, or resistance, then we could do the very transmutation of that energy by what is suggested here. He says, if I have a failure, I baptize it success in the name of the Father and the Son and of the Holy Ghost. So here we see the similarity to the golden key, which we discussed last week. I'll put a link in the description to that video. Trust you'll find that to be complementary to this. So we want to overcome the non-resistance by staying committed to our goal and our vision, which allows us to think clearly, accurately. And if we encounter anything that we would label as failure, obstacle, and so forth, we could transmute that energy into an opportunity by looking at it differently. And as mentioned, what we're really doing here is what she says here, which I like it. I've never heard it said this way before, but I want to encourage this more so. She says, every man on this planet is taking his initiation in love. And I like that, so let's repeat that again so we can really understand it. And I believe we can understand it even more so as we continue down the path. Every man on this planet is taking his initiation in love. So we find within ourselves what we truly love. We imagine what we truly love, and we allow ourselves to express or be that which we truly love. Allow it to express, releasing from the internal resistance. What is the resistance? Here's a clue. She says, man's only enemies are within himself, and a man's foes shall be they of his own household. Personality is one of the last enemies to be overcome. As this planet is taking its initiation in love, it was Christ's message, peace on earth, goodwill towards man. The enlightened man, therefore, endeavors to perfect himself upon his neighbor. His work is with himself, to send out goodwill and blessings to every man. And the marvelous thing is that if one blesses a man, he has no power to harm him. So perhaps on many pathways to realizing the vision, it may involve people. Certainly it is the case on many career or entrepreneurial pathways or artistic pathways. How we relate to others reveals how we think of ourselves. And we are taught to make peace within ourselves in relation to others, to, simply put, imagine lovingly of others on the journey to realizing our vision. Everybody. And so she says, real love is selfless and free from fear. So what is fear? We've discussed this before. Same as reactivity, tension, resistance, obstacle, failure, messengers of what we are thinking, what we are imagining. And so we don't see fear as a problem, we see it as a messenger. What are we imagining? What are we thinking? What is our inner dialogue? What is being impressed on the subconscious mind as a result of the reactivity-based interpretations brought to the surface as a result of the reactivity? And so she says, real love is selfless and free from fear. It pours itself out upon the object of its affection without demanding any return, because all is one. Outer is a reflection of what's going on within. Love within is expressed and revealed as an expression of love in relationships, in our creative endeavor, and this is one of the things that we learn in relation to the journey of who we are becoming. Its joy is in the joy of giving. Love is God in manifestation, and the strongest magnetic force in the universe. Pure, unselfish love draws to itself its own. It does not need to seek or demand. So, as we live from the premise of love, we further release the resistance. We consciously work with what we are thinking, imagining. That information, and also the hunches and inspiration, is impressed on the subconscious mind, and we notice we develop a higher degree of relationship with our inner world and intuition. And then we realize what she says here. There is nothing too great of accomplishment for the man who knows the power of his word and who follows his intuitive leads. So we brought this up many times, and it was for me one of the most inspirational things that I heard in the earlier stages of my entrepreneurial journey, back in even prior to going full-time in 2009. It was from the Steve Jobs commencement speech where he said, follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you want to become. And he actually said, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you want to become. And what I would say, upon working with this information and reference experience and constant meditation upon that quote, is that not only does my intuition know, as we discussed, we discover it within ourselves, what we truly desire. See, I'm not going to tell you what to desire. You know the answers. Nor would I suggest you allow anybody to tell you what you should become. We find it within ourselves, and we become it. I've revealed so much in my life in relation to this advice. In business, relationships, personal life, where I live, how I live, whatever. And I continue to do so. And so I listen to this intuition within myself to reveal not only what I love, what it implies in imagination, and also what she says here, intuitive leads, as in the how to bring it forth. Hunches, ideas, inspiration is received within. Certainly, we can meet others who stimulate the intuition within ourselves. I always aim to be that way in these conversations, and I trust that you may be in the presence of others who also reconnect you back to your intuition. And that's a beautiful thing. We want to be this way to others. Certainly, I encourage it. And then we understand, when we actually follow the intuitive leads and produce the results, all of this is not conjecture. It leads to concrete results. There's nothing too great of accomplishment for the man who knows the power of his word and follows his intuitive leads. So we receive the hunches and inspiration, and we commit to in imagination, and we continue the internal dialogue, which is the true, honest, genuine internal dialogue of how we really see ourselves and we allow to express. Remember, body is an expression of body. Actions are expression of mind. From the premise of the idea realized in mind, as in, that's what I commit to, that's how it is. And so that's the power of the word. And so we carry on our conversation internally and externally from that premise. As in, we observe our reaction to our own words or our imagining to what we are identifying with in how we relate to environments, people, circumstances, and so forth. And it reveals to us what we are unconsciously thinking. And we have the opportunity to make peace with those thinking patterns. And as we make peace with those thinking patterns, working with the subconscious mind work, I suggest The Power of the Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. I've done a lengthy discussion on it. I'll put a link in the description to that. Then what ends up happening is we actually allow ourselves to think accurately, think for ourselves, which essentially means listen to the intuition and follow those intuitive leads. Allow the intuitive leads to come up with creative ideas to challenges or work with the different opportunities that we have. The entrepreneurial space, I've seen it play out as all of a sudden I realize how to connect the different relationships, the resources, and the assets that were always there into products, services, overcoming operational, let's say, inefficiencies. I learned how to work with delegation, automation, elimination in part or in whole or in combination. Intuition guides all of this. We find it within ourselves. And one doesn't have to know everything. They just follow the first intuitive lead and they commit to it. And the next step reveals itself and so forth. I actually had a conversation with a friend yesterday. We went for a walk and I mentioned that, I only like to work a certain amount of time a day, 6.5 hours a day. And yes, I could work more, but what I like to challenge myself to do, if I want to achieve more, is work to a higher degree as far as leverage go in relation to time via my own thinking process in relation to time, and scale my time via automation, delegation, or elimination or optimization in part or in whole. Many different ways of doing this. A person doesn't have to work more to produce results or higher yields or more money. They just work with the intuitive leads as a result of honoring the idea that they can do it. We talked about this in the video that we released last week, in which we looked at time and space from a different perspective. I'll put a link in the description to that video. When we, and I gave examples in that video as well, see time and space from a thinking pattern that is spawned from within via intuition, we all of a sudden come up with ideas and ways of doing things that are beyond overthinking, beyond forcing ourselves, less resistance. And we find creative ways to produce the results in what we could say is less time. And so, you could say I challenge myself to do it. Because if I have a desire to achieve the next level of success, whatever that is, I don't want to try harder. I want to allow the subconscious mind, in its ways that are a lot of times unknown, to come up with the creative solution and even bring forth the people, the circumstances, the environments, the relationships, the resources, and assets together in interesting ways. All of a sudden, somebody calls you up on the phone, or you have a creative idea of how to change something in your business model. These have been results and experiences that I've had, and many that I've spoken with, as a result of encouraging that idea. Follow your heart and intuition. They somehow know what you already want to become. And so let's read this again. There is nothing too great of accomplishment for the man who knows the power of his word and who follows his intuitive leads. Now, this results in true self-expression, true expression of what we would label as mystical powers or inner genius within ourselves. It's brought to the surface. I know I wasn't thinking these kinds of things back in the days when I wasn't encouraging the ideas that she's suggesting in the book. Upon working with the metaphysical information, I realized how, practically speaking, it works, because I found that I would prove it to myself through some form of creative expression. For me, it was entrepreneurship. For you, it could be art. For another person, it could be music. It could be science. It could be anything. You know within yourself what it is. And not only will you be able to realize it, but you'll find distinct and creative ways of doing it. And you'll find it all within yourself. And that is what we call perfect self-expression. And so she says, perfect self-expression will never be labor. Let's read that again. Perfect self-expression will never be labor, but of such absorbing interest that it will seem almost like play. I would agree with this, because when I committed to, and I continue to commit to, what I truly love, and I allow myself to follow the intuitive leads, to think from the premise of those intuitive leads and ideas, to use my words internally and imagine constructively from the premise of those intuitive leads. What I notice is it feels like play. I actually enjoy doing these things. There was a time in my life where maybe it did seem more force-based for me, and that's because I was not listening to myself. I was not allowing intuition to reveal what was being sent to me within from the superconscious. Not only do we know what we want, we have the opportunity to commit to what we want, and we also have the opportunity to reveal our own distinct ways, which end up being flow, play-based ways. It really does feel that way, like flow, fun, play. And so she says, the student knows also, a man comes into the world financed by God. The supply needed for his perfect self-expression will be at hand. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Again, 3 key lessons that I had learned from this book, and I continue to encourage. Discovering what you truly love, revealing what you truly love in your mind's eye via creative imagination and committing to it. Thinking from the premise, knowing that all that information is impressed on the subconscious mind, and we allow ourselves to express, body's an expression of mind, to honor the intuitive leads, and not only do we realize our visions, but we become who we are destined to be. And so that's my current understanding of The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn. Let's go ahead and conclude this with an auto-suggestion to contribute. We could say, I realize that within myself, I can bring forth, and I have the ability to reveal hunches, inspiration, intuition that will allow me to discover what I truly love. I find myself automatically committing to it, that which is flashed in my mind's eye from infinite intelligence. That is the pathway to my destination, and the destination in itself. And within the destination and the journey is intuition that guides me all along as I honor it, knowing that the perfect ideas are found in the divine mind in which I'm one with, awaiting my recognition. Through the imagining faculty and creative faculties, ideas are flashed. Intuitive inner voice nudges, inspirations are brought to the surface as I allow infinite spirit to open the way for the divine design of life to manifest, and allow the genius within me to be released and see clearly the perfect plan. This perfect plan includes health, wealth, love, and perfect self-expression. This is the square of life which brings perfect happiness and harmony in the spirit of harmony with all. This allows me to imagine only good unto myself and others, and bring forth into my life every desire from my heart in relation to health, wealth, love, friends, perfect self-expression, and ideal ideas. Knowing that whatsoever things I imagine in prayer, believing that I already am in reception of it because it's who I am, these are my divine designs. I'm able to act automatically so from that premise. Intuition allows me to also understand any internal resistance and find the true and accurate perspective in relation to the inner and outer element and the relatability to transmute into accurate thinking in relation to my goal, vision, and who I'm destined to become.